Well, there's breaking news that we're tracking at this hour. Now, this is in context of the US immigration crackdown. There are new rules for migrant workers, is what we're being told. No automatic extension of permits. This is the latest we're tracking from the United States State, that there is a US immigration crackdown in which there are new rules, in fact, that have been laid down for the migrant workers. There will not be an automatic extension of permits, is what we're being told. Now, this is called by the US administration as the common sense rule for migrants. Important to understand that Indian workers working in the United States are affected by this rule. Now, families and dependents will be hit the hardest. Important information we're tracking at this hour in the newest immigration crackdown. Now, there are new rules for the migrants. Listen in to what J.D. Vance had to say on this.
We've got to become a common community again, and you can't do that when you have such high numbers of immigration, which is one of the reasons why we have the immigration policy we do.
Well, on this, my colleague Vishal Vivek joining us on the telecast. Now, Vishal, none of us are in fact oblivious to Donald Trump's take when it comes to immigration. Help us understand the kind of implications that this will have on workers working in the United States.
Well, that's exactly right, and this is yet another chapter in the big crackdown that the US has enforced ever since Trump's second term. So how it impacts is the big question here. The families of workers in the US, they are likely to be the most impacted. Families and dependents will be the hardest hit because this move, some critics argue, disproportionately affects families on dependent visas, particularly Indian H-4 visa holders. These are the spouses and the families of Indian workers in the US, so they could be the most affected. There will be no more automatic extensions of documents, as was the case in the previous administration. They didn't really have to worry about extensions because once they applied, they could assume that there will be extensions. That has been removed. There will be vetting, another level of vetting. And also the fact that USCIS, the Citizenship Immigration Agency, it has clearly indicated that these workers, the families, they will need to submit the documents well in advance, almost 3 months to 6 months in advance, so that the vetting process could be smooth. Otherwise, they could risk rejection of the documents. So these are some of the fears gripping the community at the moment. Of course, Indian workers make up a large chunk of immigrant population there. They dominate the tech industry, so there could be several ramifications there. There will be risk of job losses due to processing delays, as I mentioned. 6 months advance notice could be enforced, and that could result in a cascading effect. Many more jobs could be lost. So these are some things that could happen in the near future. We'll have to wait and see, because this will be enforced within a matter of hours now.
And Vishal, I wish to understand from you, since you've mentioned that there will not be any automatic extension of permits, and this of course directly impacts not just the workers but also people who are dependent on them. Now, walk us through the process. What exactly will one have to do to get an extension of the permit?
Mentioned previously, you will in the previous administration of Joe Biden, if you applied right before the date of the deadline, you could safely assume that your documents will be renewed. You will get an extension, but that's not the case anymore. They have clearly indicated that you have to start the process well in advance. You can't wait for the deadline 1 day or 2 days before the deadline to apply for these documents renewal. You will have to start the process 6 months in advance, so that you're not at the risk of being rejected. That is what the USCIS has clearly said. That sort of upends the whole process that was in place before, because families, workers' families, especially Indian immigrant families, they could safely assume that their visas would be renewed. That's not the case anymore. This, as I mentioned earlier, this is pertaining to job losses. This is pertaining to families being separated. There could be several ramifications. So we'll have to wait for the effects of these new rules.
Right, and I also wish to understand from you, Vishal, of course, this is an important regulation that not just impacts the workers and their families, but also perhaps even companies and multinationals. Now, has there been any sort of response that has come in through by any, multinational, any big company that has sort of weighed in on this, of course, new rule?
This was, announced just a few hours ago, overnight hours, Indian time. We'll have to wait for, statements on that, but there will be statements because, as I mentioned, Asian community makes up a big chunk of workers staying in the US. out of the Asian communities, Chinese and Indians are the biggest number of outstation diaspora station in the US. That helps to a great deal. Both the Chinese and the Indian nationals working in the US have played a big role in propping up the US economy. And the fact that new rules keep coming in every month or so now, they've sort of dented the spirits of many US workers, many Indian workers and Asian workers that want to go to the US for a big opportunity. So there will of course be big ramifications there.
Right, absolutely, Vishal. In fact, continue to stay with us as we track more breaking news coming in from the United States at the moment.